In 1969, the first man walked on the moon. To get there, he and his team flew in Apollo 11, which used a 6 million pound Saturn V booster rocket to launch them outside the Earth's atmosphere. By the time the astronauts had returned, the entire rocket system had been cut loose and discarded. It had done its vital job well, but it was now no longer of any use. Flash forward to 2024, when 1/4 of the US workforce will be age 55 or older, old enough to have been alive during that long-ago moonwalk. And many of them fear that they, too, are about to be discarded. They're not wrong. Too often, American companies write off their older workers. Current popular perception is that all innovative risk-takers are 20-year-olds wearing hoodies. At 30, you're edging towards irrelevance. At 35, you're over the hill. Over 45, you're first in line for the next axe swing. After all, as Mark Zuckerberg once famously said, young people are just smarter. So why should you listen to a 55-year-old woman tell you that's wrong? Well, for the past 25 years, I've led teams that launched new companies, opened up untapped markets, and turned around projects gone terribly wrong. For the past 10 years, I've studied how businesses successfully navigate through change. And I work in an industry that's undergoing seismic, technologically driven change as I speak. So I have a bit of a stake in the outcome. And I'm telling you that we're wrong about how we look for answers. Now, over the past 30 years, attitudes about the value of age and experience in business have changed. Older workers are marginalized as non-digital natives. Yet at the same time, many of them are stitching together frantically the fabric of a safety net that holds their families together, including their parents and even those adult children who like to boomerang back into the basement. They're not leaving corporate America for startups anytime soon, which is a good thing, because most startup founders don't want them because, hey, they're old. And we over 50-year-olds, after being constantly told how irrelevant we are, we tend to say things like, been there, done that, it's not going to work. And we say that a lot, especially to people wearing hoodies. Meanwhile, companies desperately compete for younger graduates, frantically revamping their corporates' career landing pages to depict their widget-making company as a dynamic hotbed of innovation. Unfortunately for them, they too are seen as dinosaurs, and they tend to be where those older workers hang out. So, not so good. So, corporations and workers are locked in a soulless, vicious cycle, desperately waiting until some youthful innovator comes along with a better, faster, cheaper way to make the widgets. Well, okay, Boomer, you all need to get out. Well, that's already been tried. In 2016, Harvard and the Rand Corporation did a study that predicted that 11% of the US GDP per capita was lost over the past decade due to older workers leaving the workforce, and predicted an additional 6% being lost over the next 10 years. Turns out the old geezers weren't just productive, they actually lifted the productivity of those around them. So that's not going to work, no matter how attractive it might be. So let's look back at the space program. By 1981, manned space travel had evolved to the space shuttle, which sported a different type of booster rocket. Once its job was done, 2 minutes into the launch, it was jettisoned into the ocean, where it was recovered, refurbished, and reused. Now, those of you that were 38 and older, you were around for that leap forward. And so I ask you, instead of discarding today's existing workforce, like the used-up booster rocket of 1969, why don't we refurbish and reuse them? Better yet, why don't we tap some of that experience from their years of experience? And we haven't really begun to know what that looks like. But in our verve for startups, many studies have shown that successful young startup founders often have a significant financial cushion from parents or other sources, which means they're not going to be on the street if they fail. And yet, this innovation we see is not actually a product of youth. The average age of a successful startup founder is 45, and prior industry experience is a key factor in that success. But we don't often hear that story, do we? Now, back in the day, before an app was the solution to all workplace woes, companies relied on their workers, their research, and their customers to determine their next steps. If we look at data and technology as the tools they are, and they're great tools, but not as the answer, we can come up with better solutions to our most challenging problems. Now, to do this, companies might convene micro-teams of truly diverse workers with ages, ethnicities, educational backgrounds, personalities, work roles, to set aside time in the workday to focus on obstacles, unmet customer needs, or even the future direction of the business, combining the experience of the older workers with the fresh perspectives of the younger workers. Now, studies have shown that these teams are most effective when they focus on a single expansion or a single problem. You can even have 5 to 10 teams working on the same issue and compete with each other. Corporate hackathons have attempted to do this, but this needs to go deeper and become a more permanent part of the business fabric. Think of it as an ongoing innovation incubator. Some companies have even opted to take workers and put them on a specific project for a period of up to 12 weeks in order to generate ideas within a defined time frame. And that's smart, because it takes a real commitment for leaders and for workers to set aside all the everyday business concerns and focus on the future. And there's a risk. But consider this. Harvard professor Shekhar Ghosh found that 95% of venture capital-backed startups failed to ever deliver their proposed return on investment. I believe companies could become those dynamic hotbeds of innovation they like to depict on their websites by redeploying their existing workforce and focusing on innovation, using entrepreneurial techniques inside the company. First, we teach the dinosaurs how to dance, and then we remind them how to fly. It might mean changing the direction you're going in. It might even mean dismantling something you have spent your life's work building. And I say that as a girl who's not crazy about taking risks. When local restaurant cooks see me come around the corner, they slap my order on the grill. I am that predictable. Been there, done that, got the t-shirt. But I don't want to stagnate at work. So about 8 years ago, I wanted to increase my technology skills. And a friend suggested that I look at a local meetup in Atlanta where I live. So I signed up for a meetup in Brussels, Belgium. Now, this technology meetup had several outstanding things going for it. Number one, it was in Brussels, where I knew absolutely nobody, so zero risk if I flamed out and was laughed out of the building. Number two, it was in English, big plus. And number three, it appeared to be near a metro stop, also a big plus. So the day came and I dutifully navigated to the address on the invitation. And when I got there, I looked up, and there was a long brick wall. No door, just a long brick wall on a long, dark street. I rechecked my map, and I debated. I was in a foreign country, not speaking either of their two major languages, alone, at dark, in a neighborhood I wasn't too certain of. And just as I was about to leave, a man came up, and he also looked a little confused about the whole brick wall thing. He was looking for the meetup too. But he turned to me and said in English, "Maybe there's a door around the side." Now, I did that quick mental thing that all women do, where we calculate out, is this guy the Belgium Jack the Ripper? Should I go? But he passed the test, so I went around the side, and sure enough, there was a door. Now, inside this technology meetup were people much younger than I was and far more technologically savvy than I was, and most were speaking in Dutch or French. Our presenter was a very well-known, extremely successful technology entrepreneur who gave an amazing presentation. But at one point during the presentation, a question came up that was right in my field of non-technical expertise. And so I answered it. And after that, a long discussion came around. And it wound up in me being asked back to present on entrepreneurial techniques in the government sector the following year. And since then, those two events have resulted in an ongoing exchange and partnership of ideas for the past 8 years. Being a non-digital native didn't mean I had nothing to offer. But if I had let my fear get to me that day, what would I have missed? I nearly left that day. Working in unfamiliar territory in uncertain times is scary, but embracing change is the way to go, and one of the best ways to do that is on a team of entrepreneurs. So you might say, what's in it for the company? First of all, the company gets an engaged workforce that's actively embracing change. If a curveball comes from an external disruptor, you have a team that is more flexible, better able to adapt, and even be redeployed to other roles within the company because they have a broader, deeper knowledge base. In addition, employees make relationships across the enterprise, which strengthens all future projects and can even help with retention. And you don't lose the wisdom gained in a company over time. Employers can do this, and employees wind up writing their own future by grabbing innovation as a chance to get, do, and be better when a challenge arises. And just like with startups, there's a chance it might not work. But the teams will be better, the adaptability will be better, and the ideas will be better. Which brings me to SpaceX. About 8 years ago, SpaceX began launching the Falcon 9 rocket, which uses a reusable booster rocket, which flies back to be reused. Now, they've tested this in over half of their launches as of early 2020, and it's been successful the majority of those times. And it greatly reduces the cost of space travel as well as launches. We are all going to have to learn to fly like the Falcon 9. And then we can truly say, because we'll be more adaptable and much more productive as we live longer. Been there, done that, not done yet. Thank you.